Today I want to talk to you about multiple alleles and sex-linked alleles. So let's begin with multiple alleles. Multiple alleles are genes that have two or more alleles. And so an example to kind of help us understand what multiple alleles are is looking at rabbit coat color. And rabbit coat color is determined by a single gene that has at least 4 different alleles on that gene. And so in rabbit coat color we see brown, white, chinchilla pattern, or Himalayan pattern, and we'll take a look at that in just a moment. The brown coat is expressed with a capital C. The albino is actually expressed with recessive alleles, and that will be a white coat color. A little c with a CH we represent as the chinchilla pattern, and the C with an H is the Himalayan pattern. And we can arrange the alleles in this following pattern, with the capital C being the most dominant, and then the recessive being the least dominant. And so in between we see some variations within those alleles. Looking at the full color of a rabbit, the alleles that are dominant to all others are going to be those that express the big C. So a homozygous dominant will have it, and then these heterozygous animals will also have it because they contain the big dominant C, representing the full color rabbit. For chinchilla patterns, these are a partial defect in pigmentation, and so that is the rabbit right here. And so our chinchilla has the C with the CH allele, and it is dominant to all other alleles except for C. That one is most dominant. So our chinchilla rabbit will be expressed in the following manner, which this one is heterozygous, this one is homozygous, this one is heterozygous. And when you look at the Himalayan, only certain parts of the body are going to be colored. And so the Himalayan rabbit's only going to be dominant to the recessive allele little c. So in the case of this heterozygous or the homozygous recessive, those are going to express the Himalayan rabbit. And then we have the albino rabbit, which has no other color. And his alleles are recessive to all other alleles, and so he or she is only going to be little c, little c. So I think the most important thing to take away from this is to realize the order of the dominance. So it's the big one versus the chinchilla, and then the Himalayan comes next, and lastly the albino. He has no dominance over the other alleles. And so lastly, I want to look at sex-linked genes. There are genes and alleles on our X and Y chromosomes, and we call them sex-linked because they are linked to the X and Y chromosomes. And so genes on the Y chromosome are typically only going to be found on males, and they're going to be passed from father to son because the male is XY, right? This is our male. Our female is going to be XX. And so there is no Y. So if there is a disease or some sort of expression on the Y, the female will never experience that. She'll never have that as her phenotype. And so the genes that are on the X chromosome are going to be seen on both sexes. So the traits will get passed on to male and female. Now this is really interesting because with males, they tend to see some of the traits more than females do. And I want to explain that by using color blindness. Color blindness is an X-linked trait, and so for males, if they have color blindness, and it's recessive also, as well, so it's also recessive. Okay, the male would have an X and a Y, and it would be carried upon the X chromosome. Now, color blindness is going to be more frequent in males because if a female expresses it, her chromosomes must be an X with a little c and an X with a little c because it's recessive. So it's homozygous recessive. So if I were to cross this, okay, let's have a heterozygous with a male, and we'll cross a person that is, let's make him big, okay, dominant, So here is female. She does not express the trait. She is homozygous dominant. This guy will not express the trait because we're dealing with dominance. And she will not express the trait, but she's a carrier. But here, he will. So over here we have 1 out of the 4 of the offspring will carry it. If we're looking at the amount out of the male, right, it's 1 out of 2 males will have color blindness. So just to reiterate, okay, the male, if he's carrying the recessive X-linked trait, no matter what, he's going to express it. He does not need to have 2 alleles to show it because it is carried upon the X-linked trait. But for the female, remember, she will only show it if she carries both. If she does not carry it and she's heterozygous for it, well, this one will not be colorblind, but this one will be. Okay, and we'll practice that more in class. Now, why is it that males have only need 1 X chromosomes, but females carry 2? Well, in actuality, we end up seeing that the genes in the X chromosomes actually switch off, and we call this a Barr body, and when you look at it under a microscope, it's usually a dense region in the nucleus. And so an example of this is cats, and so 1 allele on the X chromosome may code for orange, and another X chromosome may code for black. So if one of the genes on the X chromosome is actually turned off in one cell, and another gene is expressed and stayed on in another cell, but another gene is turned off in one cell and the other gene is turned off in another cell, we start to see the spotting. And so in this region of the cat, her X chromosomes for black have been turned off, but over here they've been turned on. And so with males will always only have spots of one color because of their X and Y. They only have 1 X, therefore if one of those X chromosomes in a cell gets turned off, it will not express any color. For females, they have 2 X's, so if one of the genes gets turned off in one cell versus the other, that's how we get the spotting and the different colors as well.